Alright, welcome back everyone. This is going to be part 4 of final assembly. And behind me here is of course the track chair. And last time we had, in part 3, we had gotten to dropping that motor in. It is just sitting there right now. So that's going to be our next focus here, is getting the motor buttoned down with the framework, and then getting hopefully the wiring harness dropped in, and then after that pumps and hoses and hydraulic motors, and we'll see where we get from there. So let's get to it. Alright, so I got the rear cradle bolted in. The engine is still sitting on some blocks because there's a lot of things that need to pass through this area where the engine rear cushion mount goes. Got some fuel stuff mounted to that rear frame. And now I'm getting ready to get the hydro motors, pumps, tanks, and filters arranged in. So I've got to figure out a way to get those all hooked up and then lift them up into position, and they go into those holes there, but on this inside. So I want to make the connections down here so that I don't spill oil, and then lift the whole caboodle up into position here. So I think I'm going to make some sort of a cradle for lifting. Here we go. Okay, so here I've got the pumps connected to the hoses that go to the motors. I've got the tank hung off of the top up here, and then ratchet straps come down to each of the pumps. That'll allow me to lift this whole thing simultaneously so that I can get it up into this position right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the crane and lift this whole thing up and then gently guide it into position. Getting close. Now to lower it down into position. Right side pump is in with the hose started to route through there. So I got the hydraulic motor on the ground there. And then the left side is also in, and I've got that hose pretty well routed as it snakes around and then goes up to the motor that's just temporarily bolted in there. So that's looking pretty nice. I'll have to cable tie everything, tighten everything up yet, but that's sitting pretty nice. And then right now the tank is just sitting on that radiator hoop, and that will later get mounted up over here onto the roll cage. So I'll have to get the roll cage in there fairly soon so I can mount that tank, but I want to get wiring and some other bits in there yet too. So we'll keep going and get the right side mounted in, and keep going with this. Alright, so I've got the hydro motors all bolted in here with the e-brake underneath there. I got both sides on, and then I've put cardboard over the ramp here so I don't scratch that and get it all dirty with my feet. And we're getting ready to put the heater in. That's gonna pop right up in there underneath the radiator. Once I get that in, I'm gonna button up those hydraulic filters mounting. And then it's going to be time to start dropping in electric harness for the whole thing. Once I do that, then I can put the roll cage on. So that's our next steps here. Okay, at this point I am ready to put the electrical harness in. I've got a stand right here that the control box is going to go on. There's the heater that's fully installed. And there's the hydro filters installed. So here is the control box, the harness, some more harness, and some more harness. I've got to carry all of that back downstairs and loop it onto there. Here we go. There we go. Got the harness down, and it's just kind of laying there. Now comes the tedious part, to get this all threaded into position and cleaned up and wire wrapped accordingly for final fitment. So that's gonna take a while. We'll catch you guys later. We'll report back in once wiring's in. Alright, so here's a little update on wiring. We're getting pretty close. We made some good progress anyway on getting wiring cleaned up. Got the control box at least temporarily mounted, and really managing the wires so that they're a nice bundle. I've been using these green wire ties for now. It allows me to keep putting wires to the bundle, and then later I'll come back and cable tie it and probably cover it. But for now it allows me to really manage the wires. And we're getting to the point where I need to mount some of this stuff up. This big bundle here is kind of in the way, and it mounts on a tube inside the roll cage assembly and holds it up. And I've got some other things on the other side here. I'll show you that. This all power term. That mounts up on the roll bar as well. And so I'm going to get that into place. It also mounts this tank. So I'm going to get the roll bar on next, and then I'm going to have to continue working on wiring these. There may be any more things I need to add for the wiring, but it also mounts into the roll cage. Here's just a part of some of the stuff that I need to add. So let's get going. Let's get the grain hooked up. We'll get that, grab the roll cage, and we'll set the whole thing onto the main frame here. All right, I've got it on all 4 pegs here. That one started. That one started. Over there in the far corner and up in here. So now we just got to lower it the rest of the way down on. And there we have it. Roll cage assembly is back down on the main frame. It kind of makes it look more like a vehicle again. And now I can start getting back to working on this wiring. This whole bundle goes up onto that piece of conduit along the frame, and there's many more areas like that that the roll cage will support the wiring. So back to that now. Little update here on wiring. Yep, we're still working on it, but we're making some progress, particularly up on this side. Got some inside panels with the gauges all mounted and hooked up. Relay block and fuses, that's mounted to the panel, and that gets mounted to the inside cockpit panel here, which will go in a little bit later. Got this internal turn block mounted, 12 volt accessory jack, ramp switches, RC box override switch, got all that mounted. So then next, there's a turn panel over here on the left side of the cockpit that we'll be working on next, which is right here, and then that'll allow me to further clean up all this wiring over here. There's a lot of wires here that need to hook in both here and where this turn panel is going to go, which is right there. So that's going to be next on our focus. Alright, so some wiring progress here in the back. Got all the wires routed that come in between this motor mount and this rear motor plate. Got all those routed and covered with this sheathing and wrapped and cable tied. And then I got the motor mount back in, which was a struggle. It's difficult to reach the bolts on there. And then you can see here on the back, I went ahead and got the pump drives all back on to the motor, and then I'm gonna next here be getting the belt drive for what's the PTO output, and then I can finish off this wiring and connection here, and then continue on with wiring. Still a lot to go here on this left side of the track chair project here, so back at it. Muffler mounted up. And next up is put the heat shield on. Heat shield on the muffler now installed. There's a bottom to it. There's a top. And then I've also got the fuel pump all connected and wired in. And now I've got the throttle mounted there. Not the servos yet, we're going to leave those off for a while. So I'm going to get back to some more wiring. Alright guys, we reached another milestone here on the track chair. I've got a lot of stuff here on the back end filled in and assembled. That's the PTO cover you're seeing there. Gear chain reduction drive, pulley reduction drive. Got all that assembled in. Got a good share of the critical wiring all assembled. And I still have to come back and wrap it. But I'm up to the point where it's time to fire this thing up and make sure that the wiring to date is correct before I go and wrap any more wiring and hide it. If there is an issue, I want to know about it now. So I did put a little diesel in the sump tank. It's down underneath here. Little sump tank there. Filled that up with some diesel. And we're going to go ahead and give this a whirl. So I'm going to put the camera on the tripod and we're going to go ahead and try to fire this thing up. Alright, here we go. We're going to turn power on there. And we're going to go ahead and turn the switch on here. We're going to hit preheat for the glow plugs for 10 seconds. 10. Alright, and here we go. Let's try it. And I got to hold the brake switch here. Alright, let's try it here. Check the antifreeze now and top that off, and then I'm going to check some more wiring, particularly with the RC unit. So awesome, it runs. We can move on to next stages of assembly. Thanks everybody for watching, appreciate it. If you have any questions, message me. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you.